but it's a Shetland. So my love of fleece, I guess, started with the Shetland because this was my very first fleece. Hello friends, welcome to my channel about creating and using hand-spun yarn. My name is Lisa and I can be found on Ravelry and Instagram as the Soulful Spinner. This is my channel about my spinning and knitting and fiber arts journey, and I'm so glad you're here along with me. I'm super excited that the channel now has almost 1,800 subscribers. It's just super exciting, and to see every new subscriber, every comment, it just means the world to me, and it encourages me to keep going and to make more videos. So keep those comments coming, and give me your suggestions too for future videos. I love to hear from you. So I'm going to jump right in today's episode. In today's episode, I'm going to give you a part 2 of my Shetland breed study. Here on my table, I have many examples of Shetland, various types and styles. So in a little while, I'll take you up close and personal and show you all the different samples that I have. And I want to give you some more information that I've learned about the breed. I'm also going to give you a final update on my Jacob sweater spin, which is in front of me here. It's this massive pile of wool. What else? I've got a wonderful book I'm going to review in a little while. The book is Hand Spinning by the wonderful Pam Austin. This woman has my heart. She's my kind of spinner, and I am so glad I bought this book. So I'm going to, at the end of the episode, I'll do a little review of this book. Yeah, and I've just got, I've been, you know, somebody had made a comment. They said, well, do you ever knit with color? And I'm like, well, yeah. I'm like, I always knit with color. I've got Mia Git and Shayla and Fawn, and I'm like, yeah, of course I spin with color. But it got me thinking about, you know, how I haven't really been spinning with very many colors other than the natural shades of wool, which I could happily spend my whole life. So I pulled out some roving here in my Turkish spindles, and I'll give you an update on that in my little spinning segment. I think I'll start with my Jacob spin, since that's the thing that is completed. So I have finally finished all of my Jacob. So this is the last skein off of my Nitty Knotty. It's been washed and finished. This is quite a large skein. I did this on my Lendrum, which has a pretty large bobbin capacity. So I'm going to see if I can hold all of these skeins in my arms here. I don't think I can, but I'm going to try. Gee, do you think I have enough for a sweater? I think without even counting up all the yardage, I think I have plenty. I think I have plenty of yarn. So yeah, sometimes I like to just hug it. So yeah, this is the rest of my Jacob spin. So I've been researching patterns, and I think a few episodes ago I mentioned the Autumn League Pullover, which is a free pattern on the internet. I will link the website where the pattern is available. And it's kind of an interesting pattern in that you start in the round around the neck, and you do this little detail right here, and you do some short rows in the back. And then after you split for the sleeves, you actually knit the front and the back separate, and then you knit the sleeves flat. So you knit the front and the back flat and the sleeves flat, and then you seam up the sides and the sleeves. And the reason the designer gave for that was because the seams give your sweater structure. And at first I was like, I don't know, I kind of want to knit in the round. But then I thought with these colors and how I want to do like a rugby style, I want to do stripes. It would actually work out pretty good because I could knit the front and the back simultaneously and count the number of rows. And there won't be any of the, that little jog or blip you get when you switch colors. So, and then I was thinking with some of the larger skeins, I could just divvy them up into 2 equal skeins and then knit the front and the back simultaneously. Yeah, I think that's the one I'm gonna go for. Yeah. Now I have a bunch of whips. I know I'm not alone in that. I have, let's see, I was looking through my things today. I have 3 shawls on the needles. I have a cardigan that I have to do. I gotta get my nerve up to do the button band. I found a couple of other sweaters that were started. It's getting a little bit ridiculous. So I really, famous last words, right? I'm gonna pick just a couple of projects. I'm gonna stick with those projects and get them done. So that's the plan, except of course I want to really cast this this jumper on because I think it'll be really nice for the fall. And I haven't made any garments with my hand spun yarn. So I think that if I do that, I can see how it wears and see what if my yarn is serving its purpose. So what do you think? Do you guys have a lot of whips on the go? Were you working on more than one thing at a time? On the other hand, if I just focus on each one separately, I would have an FO parade over the next several weeks because each one has got a significant amount of progress done. But anywho, so that's my Jacob spin, but I digress a little bit. I also have been spinning and prepping a fleece from Cold Valley Farm. It was one I bought last year. It's a little fleece. Her name was Mandy. And it was a little black and white Jacob. And I showcased that fleece in the Jacob episode. And I've been processing some of that because I thought that it would make a nice addition to my Dakota carding and wool spin, which is the Jacob I have here. But looking at this yarn, I was so happy with this skein that I made from the white parts of her fleece. I showed this at the end of last week's episode. It just turned out so soft, so pretty. It's woolen spun, but you can still see the plies. I know a lot of people like worsted spinning because they like to see the ply structure. It's just so light and airy and soft. And I've got these 2 as well. These 2 and a little mini of the black. So I was thinking I would just take Mandy and make her into a separate little project. This is definitely next to skin soft. The Jacob for my sweater is a little bit coarser feeling, but this is just really, really soft. So I'm thinking of making, either a scarf or hat. Well, I don't want to do anything that's going to have a lot of wear, like mitts, because I think mitts would get really pilly and I don't think it would be very durable for that. So I was thinking of making a little scarf. So I went back to the fleece yesterday and I picked out some more white and some of the fiber that I couldn't really separate from the black. And so I came up with this big bat here. And I think when I spin this one up, it's going to form a shade that's in between these 2. So, Mandy. That was a Barry Manilow song. Oh, Mandy, well, you came and you gave without taking, and I need you today. Well, you get the idea. So what do you think? I'm thinking that I might take one of my, maybe do just like a simple lace pattern, like feather and fan or something. I don't know, I haven't decided. It's not going to be a ton of yardage because the fleece was only about a pound and a half. Excuse me, and it's got a lot of dust and chaff in it, so it's been kind of a challenge to get it out. I've been actually using my combs to comb it out and then putting it in the drum carder to get rid of some of the dust. Because if you card dust, chaff, bits of hay in your drum carder, it's going to split it up, blend it in even more. So I also tried taking one of my hand combs and just using one of the hand combs to flick and just to pick it out apart. I did it outside and I just kind of picked it apart and tried to get all the dust out. I could see where people like those pickers or the tumblers. They put the alpacas, they put the tumblers, alpaca fiber in these tumblers that get rid of a lot of the dust. But yeah, I was going to include this in the one project, but now I think it wants to be its own project. What's neat about Jacob too is in every Jacob fleece, all the colors you get from that particular fleece are going to be harmonious and they're going to go well together. So the next thing I've been working on is some spindle spinning. I went ahead and pulled out some colored roving out of my stash to work with my spindles. I figured they'd be nice to bring on vacation. And so I am spinning up, well, I just started actually. This is a Bach pack from Hilltop Cloud. This is a super fine Shetland, so you know there's a theme here. I was actually thinking that the Shetland that I spin here, I could incorporate with some of the natural colors and make a color work project. So I pulled this out of my stash and it's got these beautiful, beautiful colors. I actually have two of these. I have two of these and I'm just going to spin each of the colors separately and then I'm going to apply them together. So I'm spinning this on one of my K-Par spindles. So this is the first color. And you know, Mr. K-Par passed away, I think last year. And so his spindles are no longer available. So this is a really special spindle to me. And if you notice, I'm not doing the typical over 2 under 1. What I'm doing is I'm just making a ball by going round and round 2 of the arms, to show you what I'm doing here. Now I have a video on Turkish spindles, and I was thinking of doing a revisit because I've learned a few things about Turkish spindles since then. But maybe I'll just incorporate it here on the podcast. So what I'm doing is I am just going round and round and round and round. And then after I build up quite a bit of yarn there, I do go over 2, and then I go around over 2 under 1, but I'm just going round and round. So I'm getting this nice ball of yarn. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to spin all these up on my Turkish spindles, and then I'm going to apply this one with the other pack. The other Killtop Cloud fiber that I found was this one. This is a gradient pack. This is Corriedale, Mulberry Silk, and Merino. It's called Hydrangea. It's very beautiful, and it's a perfect gradient. So she's got main colors, and then she's got some smaller bits that are meant to be transitions into the next shade. So I've got the first 2 already spun up. So here's one. This is one of my Enid Ashcroft spindles, which I just love. I love her work. I'm waiting on a support spindle from her if it ever gets here. It's just that the mail has been really, really slow overseas since the pandemic. All right, so this was the first color, and this was done on one of my Tait spindles. Wonderful, wonderful maker, as you all know him. And then this one is Enid Ashcroft. So I've got the first 2 shades completed. And then I thought this would be an ideal spindle project because it's small bits of fiber. I start spindle spinning, and then I don't finish the project. So I'm hoping that I can spin all this up on my Turkish spindles. And I bought this in a set too. I bought 2 of these just because I figured it'd be easier to ply that way. And then I would get a nice, well, this is 140 grams, so I get 280 grams of a gradient, which would make something really lovely. So that's what I'm doing in the way of color and spinning. I did wash some fleece this week. I washed some more Romney, which I will show you here. So this is Scarlet. This is from Lisa Logue on Facebook. It was a 3.5 pound fleece, first shearing, and it was a coated fleece. And it's actually absolutely beautiful. I showcased this fleece in my Romney episode where I talked about Kent Romney, and here's one of my nests. I'm really loving this, the long wools, you know, the medium, longer stapled wools. They're just really, really easy to process. So this has been washed, and yeah, what I need to do is I need to get to my dye pot. I haven't done very much dyeing, but I have so much naturally colored and white fleece. It'd be really fun to do some dyeing experiments and make some roving. And I think this would be really great to do that with, to experiment with. I found some alpaca that I thought would be nice to blend with this, some white alpaca. That's about the same staple length. So yeah, so stay tuned for that. All right, so that brings me to my Shetland breed study and my progress with that. So last week I showed some fleeces that I purchased from Jen from Whispering Pines Shetlands in New York, and I have been working on Lakshmi, she's a gray catmaggot fleece. And I washed the whole thing. And I'll show, I think I showed the locks last week, but I'll show you the washed locks here. It's a beautiful, fine, grade 1 Shetland, and I'll talk about the different grades here in just a little bit. So you've got some darker shades, kind of some medium, and then really very light color. So this is proving a bit of a challenge for me to process because it is so fine and so springy and so soft that I think I'm learning a lot. So what I did is I took several locks out of the fleece, and I flicked the tips, and I flicked the root end from that was closest to the animal, and I had this whole pile of flicked locks. And so I thought, okay, now I'm going to make a bat. Well, I pulled out my Strouch. I have a Strouch Finest drum carder, and I started putting the locks through the drum carder, and this is what happened. It's not a disaster or anything, but I don't know if you can see this, but because the fiber is so springy, I think I had it set at too high of a speed, and it created all these little, well, not a lot of little neps in the bat. So here's another one. And I kind of almost cried. I was like, oh crap, did I mess it up? You know, I think maybe I was doing it too fast, or I didn't separate them out enough, or I don't know. So drum carding is out for this fleece. There's just no way I'm going to drum card the rest of this fleece because it's just going to give me all these, you know, I think what's happening is the very fine fibers are kind of springing up on themselves and causing these little little neps in the bat. That being said, I did separate. I think I took 50 grams, and I did spin 25 grams here just this week here. This is my Lendrum Saxony bobbin, and you can kind of see the texture. I'm spinning it very thin. I'm aiming for a 2-ply fingering weight. And as the little neps come through, I'm kind of plucking them off and then just really trying to incorporate them into the yarn. So I'm going to go ahead. This is the other 25 grams here. I'm getting stuck on a spindle. I'm going to spin this onto another bobbin. I'm going to apply these together and finish it and see how it looks. But I was just kind of, I think I've been so used to, you know, I've been working with Romney and Jacob, and Romney and Jacob are both kind of medium wools, and I mean, you can do whatever you want with them, and they're just going to create beautiful whatevers. Of course, you're not going to get the extreme softness and fineness of this fiber. So moving forward, what am I going to do? Moving forward, I think I'm going to use, my original plan was to use mini combs. I thought, I don't want a mini comb, comb the whole fleece, but I really think I'm going to have to do that because otherwise, or I could just spin from the locks, but I don't really want to do that. I kind of want to do a long draw with a larger prepared, you know, chunk of fiber. So what I decided to do is I decided to do some combing, and I'll show you the result of combing. So here are two of the nests that I combed from that same fleece, and you can see it's so much smoother and you know, very, very beautiful. I want to show you what I'm getting in the way of waste here. Let's see if I have it here. I have a desk full of Shetland here. So this is what I'm getting from the waste. You see that? They're all the tips of the fleece, weak bits, shorter bits. It's very, very soft. I'm getting quite a bit of this, little kind of neppy fibers here. and I'm trying to figure out what to do. And I was thinking of making a true tweed yarn, where I might take some of this, maybe dye it in various colors and card it up with some other wool and get a tweed yarn. I just did, so it was a kind of an expensive fleece, and I don't want to, you know, waste any of it. I'm spinning this long draw on my spindle as just for fun as well. And then I'm doing long draw on my wheel. I'm gonna see if I can get the same type of yarn on both. So I'm gonna do it just long draw. So you can see how textured it is. It's woolen. And this is from the combed nest. So I have a feeling it's a lot like, you know, like a real fine cormo. I think sometimes people talk about the fine wools and how they can, you know, pose a challenge to the processor. I mean, no fault in the fleece. The fleece is very, very strong, very, very clean. There's no veg matter in it, none, zero. And it's a premium fleece. It's just that I don't know. I guess I'm just you know, learning as I go here. But this is what I'm out to get here in terms of, you know, look, it's like a spring. I think it'll be okay if I ply it very tightly. It can take a tight ply because it is so soft. So I've been playing around on my spindle here and then going to the wheel. I'm actually finding that I enjoy spinning thin on a spindle rather than a wheel. I mean, I don't know why. I think with a spindle you can get lots and lots of twist very quickly, and you can almost make it as fast, unless you have like a super fast flyer or something. But yeah, I'm just doing long draw like this. So that's my, yeah, I like that. So that's my progress on my Whispering Pines project. You know, when I bought the fleeces, I was so worried I was going to ruin it, but I don't think I am. I think I'm doing fine. But yeah, when you compare it to something like this, I mean, this is a Romney lock that I happened to fall on the floor, and this is just, you know, this is so easy to prepare. That is taking some finesse, some deft handling. So, all right, I think at this time I'm going to insert my video of my Shetland samples and give you a little bit more information about the breed right here. I hope you enjoy it. So what I have here on my desk is some samples of Shetlands that I wanted to show you today. And I wanted to compare it with what I learned from this chart here. So this is the chart that came with this little pamphlet from the Fine Shetland Sheep Wool Association. I'll leave a link to their website in the description box, so I'm sure you can get an electronic copy of this. But in here they give you information about the breed and the standard based on the 1927 standard from the Shetland Sheep Society in the UK. So as you see here, you've got lots of different grades. You've got grade 1, superfine premium, and then grade 1 superfine. And this is what Jen is breeding for. And then you go down to grade 2. There's 2 of each, grade 2, 2 of grade 3, grade 4, and then grade 5 is heavy. So there's a wide range of acceptable types of fleece for Shetlands. So I was going through my stash and I found some really nice examples of Shetland. I have a little sip of my coffee here. So the first one I'm going to show you is from Psalm 23 Farm. So Laura Matthews at one time was a Shetland breeder, and she subsequently sold her flock, and now she does have crossbreeds, I think. She's a hand shearer too. She shears with blades, not with electric shears. So this is what we call a Miagit, and her name was Farley, and you can see how long this is. It's about 4.5 inches staple length. Miagit is a golden brown color. It has no gray fibers whatsoever. And so I have this fleece in my stash. Now, sadly, when I wash this fleece, this is from, there are 2 types of locks in the fleece here. There's these shorter locks here, which I suspect was around the neck and the shoulders. And then there's the longer locks that were down the body. What had happened is I had washed this fleece and I let it out to dry on a very, very hot, sticky, humid day. And the basis of the fleece got cotted. So it's not felted at all, but it's cotted. So when I go to pull the locks from the clump, it's quite a bit of effort. And it's been creating a little bit of problem in the processing. But the color is so beautiful. Just beautiful. Like when they talk about the golden fleece, they must have been referring to this. So I made some nests. So here are some of my combed nests. Because this is more than 3 inches, I thought combing would be best for this. Now, when I first bought the fleece, I carded some up and I created this little mini skein, which is fine, but it does not bring out the characteristic of this fleece. It's very fuzzy and it's just kind of meh. You know, I don't think it really does much. This, on the other hand, is from combed nest and spun with all the fibers parallel, and look how beautiful that is. It's this beautiful gold shade. Absolutely stunning. So what I found was in the fleece that was stored, I had stored it in a cloth bag. It was still very sticky, not only at the base, but also at the rest of the lock. So I did some unicorn power scour, and it really helped a lot. It really got rid of the residual grease, and it's making it a lot easier to pull out the locks from the from the fleece. So I'm really looking forward to spinning more of this up and making more of this yarn. I just think it's really, I'm just like in love with this, as you can see. So I would say that this fleece is probably in the grade 2, 6 or more crimps per inch, soft handle. It's, I'm not an expert, so it takes years and years and years to be a good wool grader and sorter. So I'm going kind of from the more longish wavy style to more of the finer crimp. So that's Farley, my Miagit, which I love that name. I have another sip of coffee here. Another fleece that's similar to that, in that it's a longer, silkier style, is this fleece from Kev's Corner. I bought this from a lady on Ravelry. This is 2-ply true woolen from Rolags. You can see it's quite fuzzy. It's got that nice woolen characteristics. Here's that same fleece spun from combed, hand combed pulled top. And you can see you get more of that strong, durable drapey yarn. And then here are the locks. You can see I think this is what most people experience when they buy a Shetland fleece. It tends to be triangular lock with a tip here. I would think this is an intermediate fleece because you can pull out from the tip, you can pull out longer fibers. So I would say this is, they call this an intermediate fleece. I don't know if it's in the booklet here. No, it's not described in the booklet here, but I have read in other resources how they call that an intermediate fleece. So this is easy to spin, whether you, and by the way, if you don't have combs and you have a longer fleece like this, you do not need to buy combs. What you can do is you can just use your hand cards and run the tip across one of the cards and then do the other side and then just spin from the lock. So if you don't have combs, you can still do a worsted style yarn. So that is, I think her name was April. It's a beautiful gray fleece, but quite, you know, I would say on the coarser side. I think for some people this would be, they would deem this to be itchy around their neck. But I think it would make great mittens or socks or, you know, a blanket, something very durable. All right, so going back to Laura Matthews, I really wish she still raised Shetlands because she was so lovely to work with. You know, she was really quick to answer your emails and super quick shipping and just a sweet, sweet girl. She now has 2 children and, you know, she probably, you know, I don't know, but she does still sell sheep fleeces on Facebook. Usually they tend to be Coopworth or Coop with crosses. So this is, I think I showed this last week, but I didn't show the lock. So this is the lock from this fleece. This was a Rude fleece also. And what I really love about this is it's very open and lofty. And it was pretty easy to process. I think I just made some Rolex and spun this long draw. So it's really beautiful. And I think I have enough of this to make the center of a hat. We'll see. I have to do lots and lots of spinning. I really want to make a hat shawl. I just think it would be wonderful to make a hat shawl out of Shetland yarn that I hand processed and hand spun. This is a skein of yarn that I spun from one of Laura's fleeces too. So this is Harmony, which was an oatmeal lamb. I bought it in the summer of 2015. And here's what I have. I have it in this mesh bag I'm storing. It's still quite, it still feels, it's got a little bit of that lanolin feel to it. So let me pull out a lock. So there you go. Very, very soft, very crimpy. And, you know, I think when I made the fiber bat for this, it was pretty neppy looking. And when I spun it up, it was just fine. You know, it looks quite fine. I think just if you give it enough ply twist, you're probably going to be okay. I love this. This is like a sponge. It's very, very squishy, very beautiful. So I like to put a card with the fleece so I know where it came from. Okay, now here's another example of Shetland. This is also, I think I bought it the same year. It's, boy, it looks like a chocolate, doesn't it? It's a Morit Shetland, also from Psalm 23 Farm, and this was a little skein that I made. So I definitely will include this in my hat shawl as one of the contrast colors around the border. It's really, really pretty. So this is the fleece I showed a couple weeks ago. This is Emma. This is also from Whispering Pines, Shetland, and this was a skein that I made from her. And I was thinking this could also make a nice center of the hat. So I'll have to make a decision and figure out how much yardage I can get from these fleeces. But this one I did from Rolex, and Emma, named after named after the Jane Austen novel of the same name, Emma. And then, of course, I'll close today with my very, very first fleece that I ever purchased. My friend and I were at Michigan Fiber Festival, and I hardly knew how to spin. And there was a lady sitting in the barn on Sunday morning when we stopped, and she had bags of fleece for $10. And I stuck my hand in this bag, and there was this Morit Shetland. It was not skirted at all. I mean, it had all the unmentionables around it. And I had no idea what I was doing. It was $10. I brought it home. I laid it out, and I disposed of most of it. I think I didn't know what I was doing, really. But it's a Shetland. So my love of fleece, I guess, started with a Shetland, because this was my very first fleece. It's pretty long staple, kind of a medium wool. And this is the very first skein. This is one of my first hand spun skeins. It's like a little mini. And I remember sending a picture of this to a friend and saying that I was ridiculously happy about this. It's so irregular. It's like one of my very first hand spun skeins that I used hand cards, and I have some more of this that's equally uneven and tightly plied and just not very usable. But I like to hang on to this as a reminder of one of my very first spins and my very first fleeces. So my love of fleeces actually started right away. As soon as I started spinning, I had to start working with fleece, and Shetland was the first one I ever worked with. So it has a special place in my heart. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this little tour of some Shetland examples, and stay tuned to future episodes where I will share more of my journey in spinning and knitting with this wonderful fiber. So as you can see, the Shetland varies quite a bit in its staple length, its grip structure, even its luster. And I think that I'm finding that I actually prefer, the more intermediate or the longer, wavier type. I think it's a little easier to process, though the trade-off is you don't get that softness, that cush, and that just luxurious, soft bounce. But I think in terms of spinning, it's probably a little easier to spin the intermediate fleeces rather than the super fine Shetlands. In this last segment of the podcast, I want to talk about a new book I received just the other day. This is Hand Spinning by Pam Austin, and it's a publication from 2018. And this is a wonderful book, you guys. It is, she is a spinner that has my heart. You know, her approach to spinning, some of her meditations on spinning and what spinning means to her, it really resonated with me. So this is Hand Spinning, Essential Technical and Creative Skills. And I'll just read the description on the side, and then I'll share a little bit of what I've learned from the book so far. Hand spinning is a peaceful, wholesome, and creative craft. This beautiful book explains how to spin unique yarn using natural raw materials such as fleece, flax, and silk. In doing so, most find a great deal of satisfaction and sense of inner purpose and serenity. Pam Austin describes how to spin using the sought-after long draw technique, which was used in the medieval period and is the hallmark skill of an accomplished hand spinner today. She includes all traditional woolen, worsted, and some new and innovative spinning techniques, each with clearly illustrated step-by-step instructions. For beginners, she outlines the best options for success, advises on fiber choice, starting on a spindle or wheel, and suggests ways to avoid common pitfalls. Throughout the book, she offers encouragement, advice, in a thoughtful, personal style. The 4 basic elements that comprise yarn design are introduced: spinning technique, fiber, color, and yarn structure. Each element and its impact on the appearance, texture, and eventual performance of yarn is clearly described and beautifully illustrated. A final inspirational chapter on art and design demonstrates that there is much more to hand spinning than simply creating yarn. This delightful book celebrates the joy, meaning, and fulfillment that working with fleece and fiber can bring. So, yeah, I mean, it is exactly like the description. So she has a spinning school. I would really love to take a class from her someday. But this was published in 2018, and it's really a fantastic book. It's the table of contents includes, it says 1 thread at a time. And so she teaches new spinners how to spin a length of yarn just with their fingers. And then she teaches them with a spindle. And then Bewitched and Bewildered is chapter 2, which is all about spinning wheels. And then the essential spinning techniques. And she really focuses on the woolen, the long draw method. And I feel like she has picked up the mantle from these ladies here. This book is Elsie Davenport's book, Your Hand Spinning, and then Betty Hochberg. So this was the 1950s, and this was the 1970s. And both of these books talks a lot about long draw technique and woolen spinning, and how that really was the method for creating lots of yarn for the hand spinner over the hundreds and thousands of years that people have spun. And she really picks that up here. I think in most books that you pick up about spinning nowadays, it's all about the short forward worsted draw. That's what they teach, and that's kind of what a lot of people just get stuck in, and they don't always go to different methods. So if you're interested in woolen spinning, I highly recommend this book. But I think the reason I love the book so much is she does have this personal style, and she talks about how spinning is more than just making yarn, that basically spinning for the soul. And that really rang true for me. I mean, the reason I call my channel Soulful Spinning is because what spinning has done for me is it's really helped my sanity. It's helped my mental health. It's helped me center myself, calm myself, have a creative outlet. I mean, it truly has been good for my soul to learn how to spin. And I didn't know if I was the only one that kind of felt that way, like maybe I'm just this weirdo, But when I read some of the words in her book, it just made my heart happy, Like, for example, in this one section, she says, be kind to yourself. And she says, spinning is creating. You're not just making the yarn, but designing it too. So go where your heart lies. If you do not like what you are spinning, using, seeing, feeling, smelling, and producing, then change it. There's no reason to force yourself to follow someone else's idea of what to spin. Be yourself, enjoy the natural products of the world, and create yarn in a mindful way and take pleasure in the process. The thinking spinner will wish to acquire as much information, as wide a skill base as they can, and then make their own well-informed choices. So that's really why I do buy and read books on spinning, even though I feel like I know a little bit about spinning. I know that there is still a lot more to learn. Later on, she says that spinning is not meant to be about meeting rigid mathematical and exacting criteria as was forced upon beginners in the past. and is sadly still sometimes accepted as the only standard of achievement or excellence. What about art? What about fit for purpose? What about performance? What about bringing joy? Surely it is a waste of our humanity to spend a spinning lifetime doing exactly what a machine can do. So she goes on to say that how many people would choose a plastic-coated white sliced loaf in preference to one handed to them by the baker, wrapped in paper, still warm from the oven. And so that really reminded me of Elsie's book, where she talks about the gardener and buying bedding plants versus planting from your own seeds. So she is the next generation of women that is handing down this wisdom about spinning. Yeah, and it gives technical information. She has a section on dyeing. She has a section on art yarn, being inspired, how to pick a fleece. Later on in the book, she says there is huge pleasure in handling fleece, particularly if you know where it comes from or who you are spinning it for, even if it is yourself. It is an act of love. Time spent in preparation is all part of the joy of being a hand spinner, along with knitting and weaving. And so she says you deserve a good fleece. Yeah, so she goes through a very detailed instructions on how to learn long draw, how to ply, setting the twist. And at the end of every chapter, she has this, in a nutshell, little synopsis. So at the end of plying and finishing, she says, there's nothing wrong in taking pleasure in your handiwork. It need not be out of vanity, but for critical appreciation of your work, your standards, your achievement, and your pleasure. Touch it, feel it, smell it, squeeze it. All these things tell the spinner something about the yarn, as well as being a pleasure. So how she compares hand spun with commercial yarn, and really urges the spinner to not just try to replicate commercial yarn, but to really create something that unique and is fit for the purpose. I love the book. I will come back to this time and time again for inspiration. At the end of the book, I love this chapter here at the end. It's a mindfulness in art, and she talks about the creative process and designing art yarn and how you can make art yarn just for art's sake. You don't even have to do anything with it. It's great. And she has a beautiful Shetland hap shawl pattern here, which I want to make. I just love Pam. I mean, she's my kind of spinner, totally. And yeah, so I highly recommend this book if you're interested in learning, especially if you're interested in learning long draw spinning. A lot of people that I've talked to have said that, well, I've been spinning for many, many years, decades even, and I haven't learned long draw. And just learning different techniques gives you so much more possibilities in creating your yarn. So I think I'll close today with a paragraph from Pam Austin's book, and it reads, "My personal experience is that learning to spin and creating yarn is akin to a spiritual journey. In over 30 years of teaching and sharing my enthusiasm for spinning with others, I have witnessed too much healing for it to be an accident. It can bring joy to the heart and solace and support when one does not know how to cope with life. An uplifting, wholesome, and affirming craft that transcends the commonplace." So, yeah, I highly, I give this one, 5 stars, definitely. She has a unique voice, a unique perspective, and really adds to the craft. I mean, I think that of all the books I have, a lot of them are technical, but this one really speaks to me with her feeling of what spinning has meant to her, and her encouragement to stretch your own skills and be creative in spinning. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of Soulful Spinning. I hope you have a great week, and I look forward to talking to you very soon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.